Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am Tamara Johnson. Shealey, good morning. It is Saturday. Saturday, January the 25th. I don't know where this month has gone, but it's gone. We are like almost done with the month of January. I cannot believe how time is flying. Let me see where my trusty co-host is this morning. Let me see where David is. Let's see. Let's see.
Hi.
Good morning, David.
Yeah, good morning. I'm doing some interesting reading about the Georgia Senate race here. I haven't finished the article, but it has some very interesting things. Um, Kelly Loeffler is sitting in the Senate listening to this impeachment, proceedings. I mean,
Yes,
she's
he is.
actually there.
Yes.
Woman's worth $500 million. She is the wealthiest person in Congress, by far. Anyway, I know that's not the topic for today, but I can't resist.
Thank you, David. And you know what? She's just keeping that seat nice and warm for me. I will see her on November 3rd.
Okay, all right.
Yes, yes. Good morning. So let's see who is joining us out there in the YouTube world and the Facebook world, Twitter world. Good morning, everybody. Today is Fourth Friday. And you know what happens on Fourth Friday? It is ADOS. Good morning, Reggie.
Good morning, Senator. How are
Good
you?
morning. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the broadcast. This is your first time with us representing ADOS. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, ready for that victory speech.
I'm ready too. We got some good mornings coming in from our ADOS family across the country. Good morning, y'all. Good morning. Reggie, tell us a little bit about the ADOS chapter you are representing. Give us a spill on what's happening with the movement. Bring us up to speed.
Well, here in Boston, we're having we've had different, opportunities to meet up and to do different things, but uh, this afternoon will be our first organizational meeting
Mhm.
in terms of Boston. So it's very excited. The people that I've been engaging are very energetic. They're very focused. It's kind of like looking in a mirror because we all uh, are familiar with the same data that explains Black life. We're all familiar with the same history. So sending one person in the room is like sending all of us in the room. So I'm very excited.
Yes, ADOS stands for the American Descendants of Slavery. This is a national movement to address the need for reparations in this country, Reggie.
Yep.
Saying black is, what, it's taboo, it's bad. It's like
Mhm.
in politics, they don't want to talk about black people. They don't want to talk about a black agenda. Let's talk about it, Reggie.
It's absolutely true. It reminds me of a discussion I had. I was in a room with a lot of people who were aspiring uh, to run for office, some people who were working on campaigns, and people who had successfully run campaigns for a lot of you know high profile Democrats that we know. And I posed the question, um, why is the word black, as you said, taboo?
Mhm.
And I wish I had a camera because that room completely unraveled.
I love it.
It
Look
was
at
it was
David.
wild.
David. They didn't know what to do with that. They were like, oh, like what do we say? Did you shock them just using the word black and talking about a black agenda?
Yeah,
Scared the hell out
it
of
was
people.
yeah, and that's what was reflected in the conversations, even with the people who were high level political operatives. They're like, I can't navigate this. If I go out there and I'm too aggressive, I get slaughtered, or I can't get the funding. And it goes back to, and I think this is a problem with the Democrats generally. Like Antonio Moore had said at the conference, we're chasing the ghost of white voters that were never there. And in doing so, we are losing Black ones.
David.
Chasing the ghost of white voters who were never there.
And
Exactly.
losing the
Yeah,
Black ones.
if you look at all the voter data for at least the past 50 years, white voters in this country, both men and women, have leaned Republican or conservative. The only way that that has changed, like I said, for the past 50 years, is when Black people show up in high numbers and vote Democrat. We are literally the swing vote in this country, I believe. And it's been the same since when Malcolm X did his speech about the ballot and the bullet speech. You know, at that time, the conservatives were the Democrats. And he said, if you put all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak, for Democrat or Republican, you are a chump. And that Black people constitute a swing vote. That was true then, and I believe it's true today.
Chime in, David.
Well, you know, it's not only this, it goes back even further than that. Black votes won the election for Harry Truman in 1948. They won the election for Ulysses Grant in 1868. It was Black votes that put Grant in the presidency. And so, you know, that was the first presidential election that Black people could vote in, you know. So it's, yeah, I think you're making a very strong point. And I'm assuming from what you're saying that these high-level political operatives were mostly African American, right? Is that what
they were entirely African American?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's just look. For one thing, my you know manual of style, as they say, you know, the Chicago Manual of Style. You know what's supposed to be capitalized, and what's, you know, how you footnote and do all of these other things. My manual of style says that. When I use the term Black, I capitalize it, capital B, right? Like you got on your hat there, because this is the name of a people, right? It's not a generic term when it's used in this context. So that's just a little aside. The other thing is that I have a friend who quotes Alvin Toffler, the future shock guy. If you don't have a strategy, you're part of someone else's strategy. Okay. So I think that's really, you know, food for thought for all of us. And what is strategy? Well, we go into that. I mean, that's how you organize your forces over the long run to take power. And I have some you know, differences with ADOS, because I think that there is a I want to break down the stereotype of European Americans. I don't want to put your European Americans, lump them all into the same category, because in effect, when you do that, what you're doing is you're contributing to the strategy of keeping, you know, of racial inequality and antagonism, of convincing whites that they all have the same interests, and they don't. Okay.
Your struggle, basically, David, let me kind of ask the question. So your struggle is that ADOS has separated itself as a specific group, and your goal is to bring us all together, and that's where you find the
No, I'm saying that what I want to do is I want to break down whites into different categories. I am not. I have no. What do you call it? I have no aim to participate in the agenda, of American descendants of slavery. But I can say, remember, you always tell me to stay in my lane,
Mwah.
but this is my lane, and this is where my lane and your lane, we need to intersect rather than crash, right? And the more I hear about people talking about whites and white people, the harder it makes for me to break down whites into class categories, gender, all of the other ethnicity, all of these ways, and particularly class, to raise the distinction between those who are exploiters and those who are exploited, right? And
that's where, David, you have to figure out how to do your work, because ADOS is very clear about how to do our work. And we're at a place in history where by 2053, Black America will have zero net wealth. And we don't have time to figure it out. We've already been saying, we've been shouting from the hilltops that, these things are happening to us. We're the next generation, and we're not going to stop. But we have another guest. Let's bring in Mr. Greg Fan. We're going to bring a pastor into the mix today.
Let me just say one thing about that net wealth, Tamara. There will be tens of millions of European Americans who will have zero net wealth also. They will not be subject to racial oppression, but they will be subject to exploitation. So that part of the story really needs to be included. That's part of the math. And you leave those people on the table, and you're making my job harder. Okay.
Well, I think you brought up something very interesting, David, that we need to break down white people, break down European American. I think that's a challenge that's worthy of taking up, because whites and the construct of whiteness needs to be broken up, and that's where the problem is. You have Irish Americans, German Americans, Italian Americans, Polish Americans, Cuban Americans, Mexican Americans. But the problem is, once they reach the United States and align with white supremacy, you flatten yourselves. So that's the work that you need to do. You have to divest yourself from whiteness, because in terms of wealth and in terms of wealth calcification, whites are a monolith. You own and control collectively, you own and control 90% of the wealth in this country. And even when we look at poor whites, the poorest whites at the bottom percentiles in terms of wealth have the same amount of wealth as the so-called Black middle class. So Black middle class is the equivalent of white poor. And even in terms of the white poor, they are, I think, about half as likely as Blacks to live in concentrated poverty. So you even have poor white people kind of scattered amongst communities where there is wealth and there is opportunity and there's a chance for upward mobility. That doesn't exist for the descendants of slaves. And so I think it's incumbent upon you to give whites that education and that perspective, and literally disabuse them of the notion that white supremacy and white domination of other races is more important than my own life and my own economic well-being. Because until that happens, I don't see us going anywhere. I'm reminded of a white woman, it was somewhere in the Jim Crow South, where they were discussing Obamacare, and she knew and she understood that her being able to access the benefits of the Affordable Health Care Act were possible, because of Obama, but she still wanted to strike it down because Obama did it. So I don't know how you convince someone that me being white is more important than my being black. So you have a challenge ahead of you, David.
Yeah. Let's introduce Greg Fan, Pastor. Good morning, Bishop.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we're looking at the top of your head. Where's your
I
camera?
know
Look
that I
up.
was lying now. I was bumping.
You got to look up into the camera.
I'm good. I'm good. I just want to make sure that you could hear me. I'm
Yes,
good.
we can hear you and you're live. Good morning. Welcome to the broadcast. So Reggie in Boston, this is the Bishop, Reverend Pastor Greg Fan. He is an activist, an advocate, a union man, and he talks about the Black vote, and he's been very engaged for a long time. So welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you so much for having me this morning, Tamara, and to your guest. I'm glad to be a part of this discussion this morning. I've been sitting and listening to the two of you gentlemen and your opinions, and I agree. There's a agree to disagree, but there's some agreement on some part on both of you guys' position. I think that one is I'm black to the bone, and I don't have no compromise about that. I'm not scared to say that anywhere I am to anybody that I am black and I am truly proud of my heritage. And I think that we should accentuate, as the brother has said, our heritage, who we are as a people, and the injustices that have been perpetrated upon us as a people, as a race of people. But David, I understand your position is that there are people of your hue who have supported our agenda in terms of black people, in terms of how we have been able to accomplish what we have accomplished because of the help of some right-thinking people who are humanitarian and understand that God created all of us, and there's no separation in terms of man, in terms of the color of our blood. Our blood, we all bleed red. We all bleed red, and that is a fact. I don't want to just kind of say something here. Is that I think the reparation is key and important for us, and we deserve it. We'll do it. We'll deserve it. And we should be continuous pursuing it. And I appreciate what you're doing, brother, and trying to make sure and keeping the message out there is that that's what we're to do. And I thank Tamara for her position in terms of talking about reparation. That's what we have failed in our mission in terms of our statement. We started talking about it, we stopped talking about it, we started talking about it, we stopped talking about it. But we need to continue that message of we need reparation. We as a people, we deserve reparation based on what our foreparents done to make this country rich, the richest country in the world. So I do agree with that. And that's what I wanted to say at this point. And one other thing that I do want to talk about, I think you said it, Reggie, when you talked about it, that you touched on it, but black people have always, since we've had the right to vote, we have been totally loyal to the Democratic Party. But I don't know what the message of the Democratic Party is in terms of taking care of the least, the less, the lost, and the left out. That used to be that message, but that's not that message no more. I see Democrats no different than Republicans. It's the billionaire, the millionaires, the billionaires, the millionaire. We're not taking care of the needs of the people. Where are we in terms of the needs of the people? Whether they're Black Democrat, or whether they're Caucasian Democrat, or whether they're Asian or Hispanic Democrat. Where are we in terms of looking out for the least, the less, the lost, and the left out? So that's my position, and I'm ready to hear what you guys have to say about what I said.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. David.
I can't hear.
Okay, David, can we hear you? Say, go ahead, David.
Yeah. I'm
David, you never are lost for words.
No, I'm listening to what the reparations issue. I am really in agreement with the need for reparations for ADOS. I think that what Reggie was saying about the white woman who could not, bring herself to be in favor of the ACA, in spite of the fact that she was benefiting from it, is the contradiction that we face. Well, not just me, and not just European Americans who are trying to do this struggle, but all of us are facing this this whiplash, of people who are in that position. Glenn Ford, who's the editor of Black Agenda Report, said that there's a choice for working class whites. You can either defend your whiteness, or you can help your sick mother.
Reggie, what do we do with that? Stay there with that thought. Reggie, what do we do with that as ADOS?
Well, I mean, I guess just we just have to keep fighting, till we get to a critical mass of sorts, because you're never going to, as long as the construct of whiteness exists and people can derive benefit from that, and for economic benefit, for social, psychological benefits, until we get rid of that, there's always going to be a significant amount of whites that just don't want to let that go. So we just have to, at some point, those that you cannot convince, at some point you just have to defeat them. And not to sound negative or divisive, but when you look at history, when you look at the events leading up to the Civil War, if the South didn't want to let it go, then okay, we just have to get them out of here. And even in terms of civil rights and enforcing the law, they're not letting the children into the schools. They're attacking them as they're busing. Okay, I'm done talking. President has to send in the National Guard. So I think we're headed for. I'm not saying we're headed towards civil war, but there's going to have to be a fight to be had in terms of those on the side of justice and those who want to maintain the status quo. And I'm not saying that just in terms of black and white. I think even within whiteness, you're going to have a struggle. You're kind of going to have the Marianne Williamsons of the world, duking it out with the Joe Bidens and the Donald Trumps of the world. So it's going to be it's not going to be comfortable, but I think it's just going to be something that just has to happen. I mean, and the country will be better for it, once we get reparations, because all the economists say that if and when we reach parity in terms of wealth between blacks and whites, it puts the economy on roller skates. GDP goes up. So if you love America and you want America to do good, especially as a white person, give us reparations.
The least, the last, the lost, and the left out, like Bishop just said.
Yep.
Right, Bishop?
That's right. That's right. But when we talk about America, and I have a problem with the Pledge of Allegiance. I really do. And my problem with the Pledge of Allegiance is when you said justice for all, and there is no justice for all, because we should not be having this conversation at all if it was justice for all. This would be a moot conversation if it was for justice for all. That's why I have a problem with the Pledge of Allegiance. How can I pledge justice for all and we do not give justice for all? You already talked about parity. We talk about equality. We talk about being equal. There should be an equal playing field. If you did it for one, why can't you do it for others? You've done it for other races of people. Why is it that we cannot do it for Black Americans? Why can't we do the right thing for Black Americans? That's where I am. The least, the less, the lost, and the right. Okay, so well, few have broken through the ceiling, but they break through the ceiling, Reggie, and you know this, and Dave, they break through the ceiling, but then they knock them back down. they break through the ceiling and they knock them back down. That's only a few. So we have to make sure that we'll have an equal playing field. And I am totally convinced, David and Reggie, is that once America can really be true to what it says to the pledge, then I think that this country would be a better country. Now, I don't know if what you're proposing, Reggie, in terms of, a civil war or something similar to the Civil War is the answer, but I know something has got to take place. And as they sung the song, a change has got to come. a change has got to come. Now, when that change is going to come, it's going to come because of people like Reggie and others, myself and so others, and even you, Dave, and people who think like you, to work together to bring that change in this country so it can be justice for all.
I'm excited to have all three of you men, like, because this is a conversation that you won't get on tradition with traditional media. They're not talking about this on CNBC or Fox, or they're not talking about this. So I just want to thank you guys for just coming on this broadcast and having this conversation. Bring us up to speed, Reggie, more on what ADOS is doing. Like, where is the movement? Where is the movement going?
I would say that we're heading into, or we have headed into the organizational phase. There's a large difference between mobilization and organization. For leading up to, I guess specifically Kamala Harris's announcement for the presidency, you saw a lot of more mobilization, but now we're kind of shifting to organization. You have chapters popping up, getting together, strategizing, coordinating with each other, taking different action steps. Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore have brilliantly been fostering different political alliances and initiatives. Specifically the National Baptist Convention, whose members, in terms of the congregations that they influence, that's 7.5 million people. So to activate the National Baptist Convention and their members, along with the Project Takeover initiative in terms of the NAACP and the Urban League, if we activate just those three institutions alone and get them to employ the down ballot strategy, this game is over. And I feel like it really speaks to the political genius and strategist that Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore are. So I feel like that's where we are.
Mm-hmm. I'm proud of this ADOS movement. I'm proud of the work that, such a young group of activists and we're pretty much young to activism. Bishop Fan been around a long time. He tells some great stories about some of the things that he's done and he's experienced, but we're new to this, and I'm just proud of the work that we've been able to do, particularly in this digital space. We've mastered Twitter, and we're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook. We are everywhere digitally that we need to be. And if we need to be in the streets, we'll be in the streets too. So Bishop, what do you think of this new generation and this whole movement? What are your thoughts? Looking back on where you've come from, how do you feel about it on the day?
Well, I'm gonna tell you something. I'm proud to see the energy and the synergism, because I was where Reggie and you were years and years ago, maybe even younger than you guys are now in terms of that, because we saw a need to get out there and get people registered to vote and getting people to vote and fighting for equality for our people. And it's good to see that young people now engage, but it cannot be for self-serving reasons. It's not can't be for self-serving gratification, but it's got to be totally committed for the cause of the people, because it's really about the people. And if we're not doing it for the people, we're doing it for ourselves, for name, for recognition, just for knowledge. We can believe what we want to believe about Dr. King and what Dr. King did, and there were many others like my pastor, Reverend Abernathy and Hosea Williams, and we can go on and on a litany of names of people who were civil rights leaders who stood up fighting for injustices. And I certainly hope, and I'm taking a point of personal privilege, I certainly hope that if we keep in mind that as we're getting ready for Bloody Sunday, that we think about Congressman Lewis, that they're talking about renaming the bridge after him, and changing the narrative of what that bridge really represented, but what it represents now. So thank you, young people, for what you do. I thank you for David, for your being who you are. I watch this program a lot, David, and I see you on this program a lot. and speaking to issues that resonate to me and people like myself, and being the middle of the road kind of person. I thank you so much for your heart and for the people. I do. And Reggie, I thank you for your heart for the people. And Tamara, I certainly thank you for your heart for the people and your continual fight for us standing up again. As the Bible talked about in Matthew 25, whatever you've done unto the least of them, you've done also unto me. And the preacher in me would have to tell you this. If you read it, it says that for that, if you do not look out for the least, the less, and the lost, to hell you will go. And Jesus proclaimed that. So that's how I live. That's how I stand. And there are so many preachers, Reggie. You talk about the National Baptists, you got the AME, you got the United Methodist, you got so many different religious groups out here that this message needs to be talked to them about, because they need to understand that we're in this together. Black and white, red and yellow, all. It's about fairness for the people. So you guys continue your work, and all that I can do to help however I can help, I'm certainly here to help in any kind of way. Don't want to be an impediment, but I want to be a help. And I appreciate your energy and your enthusiasm to get it done.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you. So are you gonna stick around for a little while, or are you heading out?
I got to go. Thank you for having me on there. Hey, Reggie, I hope to meet you real soon. Dave, I hope to meet you real person too. But I check this program out regularly and often, Dave, so I see you.
Thank you. That is the Bishop. Tell us where your church is, Bishop. There may be some
I'm located in
Atlanta,
1362 Metropolitan Parkway in Atlanta, Georgia. And of course, I'm working with Chad Cooper and Chad Cooper Company, who's doing a play called Justice on Trial. Did the play. The movie is going to be here February the 16th at the Porter Sanford Stadium Studio. So if you can come, please try to come and see that movie, because the movie certainly talks about the injustices that have been perpetrated on us as a people. That's going to be February 16th, and it's going to be at the Stanford Porter Theater in DeKalb County on Rainbow Drive. God bless you. Thank you, Mary, for the time.
Thank you, sir. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop.
We have Mr. Egberto Willies in the house. Politics done right.
Hey, Egberto, what's happening?
Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Tamara, David, and who is my third brother out there with the pound ADOS there? I don't.
That is Reggie from Boston. You have yet to meet Reggie from Boston. He is ADOS 100.
Reggie, blessed. How are you doing, sir?
Blessings, Egberto. How are you, my man?
Absolutely, absolutely. Not to worry. I'm one of your allies, right, Tamara?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. He's here. He's here.
I'm here. How's going? Anyhow, my little perspective. What should I say?
What do you want to talk about, Egberto? Tell us what's going on nationally. What's going on with that Joe Biden that they swear is our candidate that he is not.
Well, the corporate media is starting to make a slight twist. The slight twist is as follows. Oh my God, Bernie Sanders is on the ascent. And that is such a great thing for not Joe Biden, but Bloomberg. Bloomberg has gone up to 9% in the national polls. So the plutocracy thinks, well, you know what? Biden looked like he's going to fade out. Let him keep holding space right now. Bloomberg has spent $250 million to bring in about a 9%. Let's say if he spends the $2 billion he said he's going to spend, you think maybe he can buy the election? Yeah,
I think so.
I hate that, Reggie. I hate
have
that
to
thought.
take off for 1 second. I have an emergency right now.
Yeah, go ahead. I hate that. That's an awful thought that Bloomberg feels like he can buy this election. That is scary as hell to me.
Yeah, and it looks like he's doing it. If he's at 9%, he's just going to do the math. Like if I could get 9% for 250 million, 2.5 billion, and he has 50 billion to spend. The guy is worth $50 billion. And like you said, that's scary. We absolutely must get big money out of politics.
Say that, Reggie. Say that again.
We have to get big money out of politics. Like this is literally
This is why we got Donald Trump, because they
like,
believe the hype. They believe the hype that money was more powerful than them. Like somebody else's money is more powerful than you.
it's like he's literally buying the country. Like, this is insane.
Damn, it's insane. David, you frowning.
Well,
Your face is saying it all.
I'm my question about all of this is, where does the power come from to implement all of this stuff? Where does the power come from to implement reparations? We can't simply, or to eliminate money from politics. I mean, we can't simply say that these things are we've got to do this. We've got to do this. We really have to have a strategy, and that's a part of the problem. I think is that the strategy has got to be connected with a paradigm that is a way of looking at the world that gets you to your goals. That unlocks the key to the power that we need to implement all of this stuff. And that's where I worry that we're not really thinking clearly enough to be able to break through.
Well, just to clarify, I said we have to get big money out of politics. I'm not arguing necessarily for getting money out of politics altogether. I think the big issue I have is the Citizens United, overturn that or find some sort of legislative solution to where all of this dark money can't find its way through PACs and super PACs. To where you have
that with the amount of power that is at the disposal of the people who are supporting, the dark money who are financing these elections. How do we do that? We can't run in circles around that. We need power. We need power to be able to do that. And I
think people have to understand that they are the power. And they keep giving away their power to these people that they think are more powerful than they. Like when, they trusted Donald Trump more than they trusted themselves.
Yeah. And that's really where I'm going with this is that we have, white people are hypnotized by the white nationalism and the right. Progressives are hypnotized by another set of relationships, and we've got
theirs is much more illusional. It's like they're lost. I'm a progressive, but progressives, they're lost somewhere sometimes in their thinkings. White progressives, because I think they're at conflict, or there's some sort of conflict going on there.
Well, yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. Did I?
Oh,
go ahead.
I was just going to say that the conflict, it's the same thing that King pointed out. It's that Achilles heel of the progressive is the same Achilles heel of the conservative, and that is the issue of race. When you bring in the specificity of race, liberals turn into conservatives. I live in.
Say that again, Reggie. Say that again.
Well, I said when you bring in the specificity of race, liberals turn into conservatives.
Yes, yes.
I live in Massachusetts, arguably one of the bluest states in this country. I live in Boston, arguably one of the bluest cities in this country. The congressional district I live in is one of the most diverse in this country. It is also one of the most segregated in this country. It has one of the worst disparities in terms of wealth in this country. And when you challenge that, you should see the comment section in places like the Boston Globe, the Boston Herald. Even if we're not talking specifically Black people, even non-white, a counselor, Julia Mejia, when she stood up for the interest of undocumented people, and in terms of them not being afraid of Donald Trump using ICE like a hammer. When she did that, her voicemail, she was getting hate mail there in a blue city inside of a blue state. The conservative just comes out like the whiteness has to be deconstructed and dismantled in this country for anything to work. It's like I like Irish people. I like Italians. I like the Polish until they turn into white people. Let
me tell y'all a quick story. So I have my exterminator who's Cuban. He's a nice guy when he's the Cuban guy, but when I see his whiteness, I don't know, he's somebody else. So I totally understand you, Reggie, when you make that statement. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that that once again, the great invisible force that's at work with European Americans that is ignored is class. There really are, there are Polish Americans, Irish Americans, Jewish Americans, but there are also Polish and American and Irish American and Jewish American working class people and wealthy people. And if we can make a distinction between those two groups, I mean politically, I mean actually, create a class recognition among those ethnic Americans of their, first of all, their working class origins, and secondly, their working class values that are in their ethnicity. Most of these groups of people came over here, and as workers and remain workers. They may be anyway. The point is that there's a contradiction there. There's a contradiction between identifying and thinking and acting white and being in the working class. So, and being.
Well, they think it's better to be white, David. They don't want to be in the working class. They want to be white.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because, that is part of it. But there are all of these elements that are involved, that are in their values, all of these elements about solidarity and what it means to be in a community, what it means to be in a right relationship with other people in your community. They have excluded some people from their working class community, and that's where the change will take place. There have always been working class European Americans who have rejected their racial privilege, because they've recognized that the racial privilege does not really provide benefits to them. And it's always been a minority, let's say 1/16 of the population. But we don't know how, if those people, I think Reggie is made a very good point. Those people don't know each other. They're not connected with one another. They are embedded in a community in which they think the way forward for them, upward mobility, as you pointed out, that the way forward for them is to kiss the ass of people who are in the in they're betters, and as long as they're looking up and kissing ass, they're going to be powerless, because they relinquish their own power to the people who are going to grant them favors. You don't get favors. There's a Russian proverb that says the only free cheese that can be found is in a mousetrap. And that's what privileges are. They're the cheese in the mousetrap. So that's for most European Americans. For most European Americans, that's what privileges are: the cheese in the mousetrap. And so anyway, I try to do this stuff, but I'm I don't have many
David, we gotta find you some white allies that you can network.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Reggie. What were you gonna say?
I was just saying I'm trying to figure out where the mousetrap is, because even as you pointed out, when poor European immigrants come to the country, like their key to success and upward mobility was not only grasping onto whiteness, but participating with the elites in the oppression of Black people. Even in slavery, my Irish ancestors came to the country to enslave and subsequently rape my female ancestors. Then you have the you have the Italians, the Germans, like all of these people coming in, from the 1900s forward, and specifically the Irish, to undercut, purposely undercut Black people in the labor market, to move themselves forward politically by violence against Black people. You even see it today with some of the Mexican American population. I'm sure you've heard the stories to where Mexican gangs literally organized to drive Black people out of neighborhoods, and the neighborhood goes from majority Black to now majority Mexican, to where they own and control the property and the businesses in that area. And even, like, my God, even people from the African continent, from North Africa, can now come to this country and be classified as white on the census. And you even see anti-Blackness within those populations. So you have an African coming over here, gets to be white, and punch down on the descendants of slaves. It's like whiteness has to go. Like, whiteness makes people insane.
I would agree with you, but the insanity is that they think that these things are actually going to get them ahead.
But it does, David.
It does is push Black people down. It really doesn't get them ahead. That I think is the distinction that I would make.
Individually, David, they might get ahead. Collectively, they don't. But maybe
collectively, yeah. I think that's a good.
I would say even collectively they do. We look at the numbers. Like, white people own 90% of the wealth.
Yeah, but it's unevenly distributed, Reggie.
Again, but like I said, when you go to poor whites, they're still within communities where there's opportunity. Now, granted, as wealth continues to calcify, it's going to get worse. But even the political discussions we're having around income inequality, opportunity gaps, wealth inequality, if we're honest, granted, ADOS has done its work in terms of pushing reparations and wealth, but a lot of what has triggered discussions around inequality, it's only being done insofar as white people are now being affected. Even in terms with
say that again, Reggie. Look, I have to stop you when you. These are like, I wish I have somebody can hashtag you. Say that again, Reggie.
I was saying our discussions are around wealth inequality, around income inequality, around student debt, around wealth itself is being triggered by whites' adverse experiences under capitalism at this point. Like, no one was complaining about wealth inequality until it hit whites. We weren't worried about drug addiction as a public health issue until it affects whites. We do not talk about gun violence in this country until white people are being hit in mass shootings. We have been getting shot and gunned down for decades.
Preach, Reggie.
I mean, again, I don't know how to fix this other than to take white people off the board in terms of white identity. It's like I need white people to disappear, and I want, let's bring the Irish back, let's bring the German back, let's bring the Italian back.
Yeah.
Whiteness has to go, or this is not going to work.
Yeah. I really, really strongly agree with you about, Reggie. It's got to be this is a culture war, that needs to be fought in the I don't know, everywhere that we could find to challenge this notion that white people can only think and act white. That's my feeling, is that this is a bunch of bad habits. It's like stopping from smoking, or doing drugs. I mean, there's an addiction to it, and at the same time, there's an aspect of will that's involved, and the will has to be the will of what Bishop Greg was talking about. That is, that what you do to the least among us, you do to me. That's the John Brown mentality. That's the mentality of the hundreds of thousands of poor whites who fought in the Civil War on the side, Southern poor whites. It wasn't just African Americans who fought for the Union. There were also poor whites that fought for the Union, because they realized that they were being asked by the Confederacy to fight to defend the property and human beings of the elite, and they had no stake in it. So there are over and over again, there are examples of European Americans who have have snapped out of the hypnosis. They just don't. There isn't anybody who's celebrating them. There isn't anybody who is holding them up as the standard, as the values that we need to embody. Instead, we get white progressives who just don't think there's any precedent for them to act in solidarity with the. They've been drugged. They've been I keep on saying George Carlin's words. They call it the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it, right? And wake up. That's I'm saying that to myself, not just to anyone else. And by the way, I don't like that word woke. And the reason I don't like it is because waking up is a process. It's and you can go back to sleep again. We really need to make that point when we're talking about woke. I'm not woke. I'm kind of waking up, but
you're woke. You're more woke than the average, David.
Well, yeah, but that's not saying much.
I think it says a lot. The fact that you are able to have these kind of conversations, and you've been saying this for 40 years or so. You're woke. I know you don't like it, but you are. But Reggie, I just want to, we got about 5 minutes left in the broadcast. Reggie, is there anything that's specific to the movement? Any points that we didn't make? I hope you come back. Please don't be a stranger to this broadcast. You bring a lot of great information. David and I would definitely love to have you back.
Oh,
definitely.
Thank you. I guess just in terms of the movement, we're like I said, we're continuing to organize, and for anybody that's out there, just find the ADOS chapter in your city or state. Connect with them, organize with them, build Black political power. And to the point, I think someone said in the chat earlier that the only thing to defeat whites with a lot of money is a lot of votes. Like that political power, you know, concentrated and aggregated, you know, and properly, you know, leveraged can certainly shift the tide. So join a chapter, and if one does not exist where you are, then you need to start one. There's no Messiah coming to help you. There's no Fred Hampton coming down and saying do this, do that. Malcolm's not coming. Martin's not coming. And Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore ain't coming. Get it done where you live. If there is something that you want to see happen in your local sphere of influence, at the state level, at the national level, you have to get involved. Either join an organization, start one, or hush.
Reggie's so kind. Or hush.
That's really good. I couldn't agree more. And there's an old play called Waiting for Lefty, which is about a union strike. And you're saying exactly that, Reggie. You know, we're Fred Hampton ain't coming. Martin Luther King ain't coming. No black messiahs. No working class messiahs. We got to do it ourselves. It's up to us. And these conversations that we're having, you know, that Tamara and I are having, that we're having with you, the arguments are clarifying. You know, your point about upward mobility, and my point about the conditions for most European Americans are and Tamara's contribution that I think is her observation that when we think collectively, we realize how much exploitation European Americans are going through. It's only when we think individually that we think, oh, my brother-in-law can get me, you know, into his business and this, that, and the other thing. You know what I'm saying?
And you hear how singular that is, though? Yeah. My brother-in-law can get me.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm taking that right out of my own blue-collar experience. I worked with a guy who said that to me right out. You know, I don't care about this job. My brother's going to, you know, has a hardware business, and he's going to make me a partner. And you're absolutely right, Reggie. There ain't that many brothers-in-law or sisters-in-law among African Americans that can handle, you know, that can make that, you know, a realistic illusion. It's still an illusion, you know, but it's not as realistic. Sometime we have to talk about horizontal mobility, because upward mobility is only one part of the story. It's really horizontal mobility that and by that I mean simply that European American working people move into the industries and the job categories that have the highest pay and the highest levels of employment and the skill levels, and it's that and black people get left behind. So horizontal mobility is really critical for the whole discussion of racial inequality that we're facing, and it's part of what we need to address when we're talking about things like the Green New Deal. You know, who's going to get those jobs? Who's going to have priority? You know, for all of these. And I mean, I'm convinced that Sanders' campaign is right. There are millions of jobs that are going to come out of that, but where is the priority going to be? Who's going to get those jobs? You know, who's going to get the skills and the training that are needed for them? Is that's where ADOS comes in, and it's got to be a really big voice in the Sanders campaign. You know, I'm partial to Sanders. You know, full disclosure. We need to have those voices there for Sanders to even, you know, be able to address these things. You know, the benefits of the Green New Deal, to people of color, and particularly to ADOS folks, to mobilize. So anyway.
We are almost at the top of the hour. Reggie from Boston with the ADOS movement, thank you for sitting in today for Chris. Chris couldn't join us, but we will gladly have you back. You were very insightful, and thank you. Just thank you for all. I know how hard this is, so I just want to say thank you. You can find more information about the ADOS movement at ados101.com. You can find, let me find the banner so I can put that website up. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it, y'all? I'm sorry. ados101.com. You can find, there it is. You can find Mr. David Slavin right here on Facebook, always right here on Facebook at Acknowledge the Divide. You can find Egberto Willies on Politics Done Right everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. This man is everywhere. And of course, you can find me, Tamara For Georgia, at tamaraforgeorgia.com. I am your candidate for the United States Senate right here in Georgia. Reggie, thank you again, sir.
Thank you,
Reggie. Great to talk to you.
Yes, yes. You guys have a great weekend. We'll be back. It's Black History Month next month. Trust me, I'm going to be wrapped up all month. See you next week, everybody.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.